Okay. My name is Branden Durst. I'm running for State Superintendent of Public Instruction. I've lived in Idaho majority of my life. I was born and raised here. I've left a couple times for some short stints, but I've lived the majority of my 43 years here in Idaho. I believe we have to get back to trusting parents again. I think that COVID really exposed what's been happening in our schools, which is that parents have been largely asked to leave schools and to not be involved with their kids' education, to lose control over what's happening in their children's education. And so I'm running for this position because I believe we need to get back to trusting parents and put them back in the driver's seat of their children's education so they can lead. So I've got a lot of unique experience, frankly, that's never been seen in this position before, but I think it's really critical for this position. I served in the legislature, both in the House and in the Senate as a member of the Education Committee. In both those chambers, I've been a small business owner, a child custody mediator, licensed pastor. I've got a master's degree in public administration with an emphasis in public policy analysis. And I've also been earning an ed specialist degree in executive educational leadership. The role of the state superintendent is really a role of policy and public administration. And so having that background, I think, uniquely prepares me to do exceptionally well in this role, to be able to understand the complexity of state government and to understand the nuance of education policy. And so I'm confident that with my background, both academically and professionally, I'm quite well prepared to be successful in this role. I think the biggest issue we're facing Idaho today is um, a systematic desire to break up the family and to destroy the family unit. And I think that is an education system is kind of manifesting itself in a lot of different ways. It goes back to parents not being able to make decisions for their students. For example, we saw in Ada County, parents have to line up to be able to ask for permission to have their children not wear masks. I think that's wrong. If not, parents not being allowed to enter their kids' classrooms, not being able to see what their kids are being taught. Those sorts of things put a wedge between students and their parents. And I think that's a real fundamental issue that we've got in this country right now. And then it goes to things like the sexualization of our students and critical race theory and those sorts of things. These are really fundamental issues that are fighting and trying to tear away at the very fabric of our society. And I think that we've got to really take a deep look at what we want out of our society and out of our state and really fight for those things that are important to us. So first of all, we need to look at where that role comes from. First, we can identify that it's not from the federal government. Nowhere in the U.S. Constitution does it talk about education. And so, any input, any influence from the federal government upon the states related to education is misplaced. The state of Idaho, of course, Article 9, Section 1 talks about the need to have a public form of education, and it's there to support a Republican form of government. And so the role of government and the role that I see playing as state superintendent is that of a facilitator to parents, to making sure that parents are equipped with the information and the resources they need to make better decisions for their students so that we can put them in charge and get government out of the way. Government needs to have the lightest possible touch, and we need to make sure that parents are empowered to make the decisions that they should be making, that God intended them to make, and get government, like I said, out of the way so that parents can do that very thing. I think if we look at the COVID pandemic and what happened with our school closures and forced masks, I think that's where I would start. I believe that we should have always left schools open and given parents the choice, whether or not they wanted their children to attend school in person or not. I think that's number one. And in the same way, provided the same opportunity to educators as well, because some educators were fine going online. Some would have liked to have been in the classroom still. And we know that private schools were doing that very thing, and many of them were still in person. In fact, a vast majority of them were. And so that's the first piece. The second piece is I would have made sure that masks were always at the parents' discretion, not at the district's discretion. That would have been a huge thing for me because I feel like it's had, and it's not just my feeling, it's empirically we're seeing the data support that this has had a tremendous impact on mental health of our students. And so that was a big problem, and we should have been able to be more thoughtful about that. This wasn't something that was unknowable. We should have seen it coming, but unfortunately, education leaders didn't do the right thing by kids and by parents, and I think we're living through the unfortunate consequences of that right now. I think it's underperforming. I think it's misdirected. And let me explain what I mean by that. Right now, the state of Idaho dumps 66% of its budget in education from the general fund. That's a huge number. Unfortunately, when we put that money into districts, we tell the districts exactly how they have to spend it. And we tell teachers exactly how they have to teach it. And we don't give parents a lot of discretion either, or students. And I think that's a formula for bondage, and bondage is not a good place to thrive. And so I believe we need to cut the chains that are holding our education system back, our parents back, our students back, our teachers back, and really allow them to be able to do things that are more conducive to a better learning environment. And so looking at just the current system, that's a better use of the funds, a different way of appropriating those funds. And I have a plan to do that. People can check out my website, durstforidaho.com/EPEA. I have a plan right there people can look at. But it really comes down to this idea, and I've already been talking about it a lot, but about just trusting parents, letting parents make these decisions. We've become a place where the system controls, the system is the decider. And I think that's exactly backwards. We need to be a place where the parents are in control, and the parents are the decider, and the system supports them. And so I think that if we get the order right, then I think a lot of the other things can fix themselves. But at this point, that's lacking. And so I, as a state superintendent, intend to put our order back in the way that it should be and make sure that parents get back to leading.
Great, thank you. Last question, and if you don't have anything else, that's fine also. But the question is there anything else that you would like Idaho to know about you?
I just think that the voters need to understand this race is very simple. It boils down to two competing visions for the future of Idaho education. My opponents will boast about their decades of experience inside the public education system in one capacity or another, and their belief that we should double down on that same system that's not meeting the needs of so many students and parents, and the desire to continue to go back to experts in the field and to be able to trust the educators and trust everybody that's in the system. And I have a very different perspective on that. I believe I'm an outsider to this. I have a lot of experience that will prepare me well to do this job. But I also believe that, like I said, teachers are important, but parents are the primary decision makers in their children's lives. And they need to be the experts because they are the experts. And so we need to trust them to make these decisions. We need to get government out of the way, and we need to let them lead. And I think that if we do those sorts of things, we can make this thing better. And I would just finalize by saying a lot of this is about things like school choice and having money follow students to the parents' school of choice, making sure that we have a plan to get rid of Common Core, make sure we have a plan to stop critical race theory. Those are the sorts of things that I'm focusing on in this campaign, because I think ultimately those are the issues that are really, really pressing the parents, and those are the issues that I care about.